Rob Reiner once directed a film about a family that looked stable from the outside while quietly unraveling behind closed doors. The movie was called Being Charlie. It focused on emotional distance control and the damage that happens when family members talk past each other instead of listening. Years later, Reiner's real life has become the subject of a tragedy that many people say feels uncomfortably familiar. According to early reports, Rob Reiner and his wife, Michele Reiner, were found dead inside their Brentwood home. Emergency responders were called to the residence on a Sunday afternoon. The Los Angeles Fire Department confirmed that a man and a woman were found deceased. Their ages were reported as being in their late 70s and late 60s. Shortly after, multiple outlets identified them as Rob and Michele Reiner. What made the story immediately more disturbing was the next detail. Police sources told TMZ that both individuals suffered injuries described as lacerations consistent with a knife. Not long after that information became public, the Los Angeles Police Department escalated the case and assigned robbery-homicide detectives. Authorities have not released a cause of death. They have not explained what led to the call for medical assistance. The investigation remains active. As details emerged, another fact surfaced. One of the couple's sons was questioned by police. No arrest has been announced. No charges have been filed. Questioning family members in cases like this is standard procedure, especially when investigators are trying to establish timelines and routines. Still, the mention added tension to a situation already filled with unanswered questions. For many people, the shock did not come only from the deaths themselves. It came from how closely the situation seemed to echo the themes of Being Charlie, a film Rob Reiner directed and appeared in less than a decade ago. The movie followed a strained relationship between a powerful father and a troubled son. The father believed he knew what was best. The son felt unheard, controlled, and disconnected. In Being Charlie, the conflict was not explosive. There were no dramatic confrontations designed to shock the audience. Instead, the tension came from silence, denial, and the inability to communicate honestly. The family appeared functional to outsiders. Inside the home, emotional fractures widened quietly. Reiner played the father himself, a successful public figure who believed his authority and experience gave him clarity. In interviews at the time, Reiner spoke about the story as one rooted in real family dynamics. In a 2015 interview, he said the film explored how parents can confuse control with care and how that confusion can push people further away instead of bringing them closer.
Those comments were made in the context of fiction. There is no evidence that the events of the film reflect what happened inside Reiner's home. Investigators have not released information about motive, sequence, or responsibility. Still, the similarities in subject matter have led many viewers to revisit the film with a different lens. Rob Reiner's career has long been associated with warmth, humor, and relatability. He first became widely known on All in the Family, a show that addressed uncomfortable topics through everyday conversation. Later, as a director, he created films that felt accessible and human. Stand By Me explored childhood vulnerability. When Harry Met Sally examined emotional honesty. Even A Few Good Men centered on truth and accountability. Being Charlie stood apart. It was quieter, less comforting, and more uncomfortable. It did not offer easy resolution. The father and son did not suddenly understand each other. The film ended with uncertainty, reflecting how real family conflicts often remain unresolved. That lack of resolution feels especially heavy now. In real life, investigators are working to reconstruct what happened inside the Reiner home. They will examine entry points, security systems, phone records, and recent communications. They will attempt to establish when Rob and Michele were last seen or heard from, and whether anything in their routine changed. Michele Reiner remained largely out of the public eye throughout their marriage. She and Rob married in 1989 and were together for decades. They raised 3 children together, and Rob had a daughter from a previous marriage. Publicly, There were no widely reported disputes or ongoing legal conflicts involving the family. That outward stability mirrors the surface-level calm portrayed in Being Charlie. In the film, the household appeared intact. The father was respected. The environment looked controlled. The problems existed beneath that surface, unseen by outsiders. As the investigation continues, law enforcement has been careful with language. Officials have not confirmed many of the details circulating online. Early information can change as forensic results become available. Autopsy findings will help determine cause and timing of death. Toxicology testing can take weeks. Public reaction has been swift. Fans have shared scenes from Being Charlie alongside clips from Reiner's earlier films. The contrast between his lighter work and the themes of that later film has become a focal point of discussion. Some viewers say the movie now feels less like fiction and more like a warning about what happens when communication breaks down. Again, it is important to separate theme from fact. The investigation is ongoing. There is no confirmed narrative about what occurred inside the home. But stories shape how people process real events. When a filmmaker spends years exploring family tension on screen, those stories naturally become part of how audiences interpret unexpected tragedy. For viewers between 25 and 50, especially those used to listening to long-form content while driving or working, this story resonates because it blends cultural memory with real uncertainty. Rob Reiner's films were background noise in many lives. Now, one of his most uncomfortable stories feels closer to reality than anyone expected. The investigation will continue. Details will emerge slowly. Some questions may never be fully answered. What remains is the unsettling feeling that art sometimes reflects fears we prefer to keep distant. In Being Charlie, one of the most striking elements is what the film does not show. There are no villains in the traditional sense. No dramatic twist that explains everything. The story unfolds through small moments, missed conversations, and emotional distance that grows over time. That restraint is part of why viewers are now drawing comparisons as they watch investigators piece together Rob Reiner's real-life tragedy. Right now, much of what the public knows comes from early reports. Rob and Michele Reiner were found dead inside their Brentwood home. Police sources described injuries consistent with a knife. The case was escalated and assigned to robbery-homicide detectives. One of their sons was questioned. Beyond those facts, many details remain unclear. Law enforcement has not explained whether there were signs of forced entry. They have not confirmed whether anything was taken from the home. They have not shared a timeline of events leading up to the discovery. This silence is typical in the early stages of an investigation, especially when forensic work is still ongoing. That uncertainty mirrors the emotional space Being Charlie occupies. In the film, answers are always partial. Characters believe they understand what is happening, only to realize later that they have missed something important. The father believes he is acting out of care. The son experiences those actions as control. Neither fully grasps the other's perspective. Rob Reiner spoke about that dynamic during the film's release. In interviews, he described the story as one where intentions and outcomes do not align. A parent believes they are helping. The child feels pushed further away. The conflict does not explode. It simmers. Those themes resonate now because investigators are trying to understand a private space that no one outside the family truly saw. Homes often function as controlled environments. What happens inside them is rarely visible to neighbors, colleagues, or fans. When something goes wrong, the absence of outside context makes the shock more intense. The Brentwood neighborhood is known for privacy. Homes are spaced apart. Security systems are common. Neighbors may not notice anything unusual unless it breaks routine. Investigators will likely review surveillance footage from nearby properties, traffic cameras, and private security systems to reconstruct movement around the home. They will also examine digital records. phone calls, text messages, emails, app activity. These details help establish who last spoke to Rob and Michele, when communication stopped, and whether there were signs of concern. This process takes time and often unfolds quietly, without public updates. In Being Charlie, silence is as important as dialogue. Conversations end before they should. Questions go unanswered. Characters assume understanding instead of confirming it. That lack of clarity drives the emotional weight of the film. In real life, silence takes a different form. It exists in the gap between official updates. It exists in unanswered questions. It exists in the delay between public attention and confirmed facts. That silence can invite speculation, even when speculation is unhelpful. Michele Reiner's role in the story remains largely defined by what is not publicly known. She stayed out of the spotlight throughout their marriage. Friends have described her as private. There are no long interview archives, no public statements explaining her perspective. That absence of voice mirrors the way certain characters in Being Charlie exist more through implication than explanation. Rob Reiner's broader filmography makes this contrast even more striking. Much of his work emphasized communication. Characters talk through problems. Conflicts are addressed directly. And When Harry Met Sally, conversation is the story. In A Few Good Men, dialogue exposes truth. Being Charlie rejected that approach. It showed what happens when people stop listening. When authority replaces empathy. When resolution is delayed or avoided. That departure from Reiner's usual style now feels significant to viewers revisiting the film. Again, it is critical to separate narrative from investigation. There is no evidence that family dynamics played any role in the events under investigation. Law enforcement has not released information about motive, responsibility, or sequence. Drawing thematic parallels does not mean drawing conclusions. But humans process tragedy through stories. When real events echo familiar narratives, people naturally connect them. For some viewers, Being Charlie now feels like a lens through which they are trying to understand an otherwise incomprehensible situation. As forensic work continues, autopsy results will likely provide clarity about cause and timing of death. Toxicology testing may answer additional questions. Investigators may eventually release more details about the scene. That information will help replace uncertainty with facts. Until then, restraint matters. Early reports can change. Details reported in the first days of an investigation are often incomplete. Law enforcement tends to move carefully in cases involving public figures, both to protect the integrity of the case and to avoid influencing public perception. For viewers between 25 and 50, particularly those who consume long-form content while commuting or working, this story resonates because it blends cultural memory with real-world ambiguity. Rob Reiner's work was part of many people's background noise growing up. Being Charlie may not have been widely discussed at the time, but its themes now feel closer to the surface. The film did not offer comfort. It did not offer closure. It ended with unresolved tension. That ending frustrated some viewers. Others found it honest. Real life often follows the same pattern. As this investigation unfolds, the public will likely learn more, but not everything. Some questions may remain unanswered. Some details may never be fully explained. That reality is difficult, especially when the people involved are well known. What remains clear is that this is not just a celebrity headline. It is a private tragedy unfolding under public scrutiny. The parallels to Being Charlie do not provide answers, but they help explain why this story feels so unsettling to many people. Art does not predict life, but it often reflects shared fears. In this case, a film about distance, silence, and misunderstanding now sits alongside a real-life mystery marked by unanswered questions. As more verified information becomes available, the conversation may shift. For now, the story remains open, incomplete, and difficult to process. Do you think films like Being Charlie change how we interpret real tragedies involving public figures? Or do they simply give us a familiar language for confronting uncertainty? Share your thoughts. And if you want updates as this story develops, consider subscribing so you do not miss them.